welcome to Topper Machine. I'm Josh Topper. So today's job is to do an upgrade to the American Toolworks metal planer mill. So what we have here is a digital readout from Machine DRO. They're in the UK. I've been ordering these my first one was about 10 years ago. And I put a couple more on a couple more machines here a couple of years ago. I absolutely love these digital readouts from these guys, and the customer service has been excellent. Very happy with them. They are a magnetic scale, so they run a magnetic scale with an encoder. Very reliable, very happy with the outcome of these things. The worst part about them is mounting them. And with any digital readout, that is always a pain in the butt. So with that, let's get set up and let's start adding this digital readout to this machine. So in order to do the scale on the bed here, on the bed side, they had to do it in 3 pieces. They couldn't ship one long one of the holder, which is not a problem. The scale itself, though, is coils. So here's the stainless steel protective and the magnetic it's an adhesive back that goes down in this track once you got it all screwed in. So I'm going to go ahead and I already laid these out, figured out where they need to go for length, and we'll just go ahead and we're going to drill and tap into the side of the bed here and mount them just like this. So they're completely out of the way on the back side of the machine. So I drilled and tapped my first hole, and this is where I'm going to start setting my line. So we're already set there. I take my caliper and I'll measure my height right at my screw from the top of the table, because I know the table is within a couple of thou of flat all the way along. 3.285. And we'll just come down here, lock the caliper first, and just bring it up to that. And then double check it down on the other end, just to make sure it didn't move on us. And these scales are very forgiving. I don't know just how forgiving, but they are quite forgiving. If you're off just a little bit, they're not too bad. So now I'm going to go ahead and drill my next hole, and there's a little bit of forgiveness here too. So if you're a little off, you can just manipulate it a little bit to get it to the height you need. And then I'll go ahead and do that all the way down with the next ones until I get the full length of the rail mounted. All right, so we got them all set for height. I just got to go through and drill and tap more holes, get more screws in it, and then we can get the scale, the magnetic strip in there, and then the stainless cover, and then that'll be ready to install the encoder. Now, you're probably wondering why I'm hand tapping these. Well, that's an M4 screw, and that's a 4-flute tap that I have. So I'm just doing it by hand, taking it easy so I can feel it, make sure I don't break a tap, because that would be bad. And those little taps, we know how they like to break. So I'm going to go ahead and get this all finished up, and then we'll get this put together. All right, so we got the whole scale installed, or the holder installed, and wiped clean. Now we take the magnetic tape, and it has a adhesive backing on it. Just get that adhesive backing pulled. Come on, there you go. And I'm actually going to start at the other end and apply it from there into the groove. Now I see I got a little more than I need, so I'll wind up trimming that off, which isn't a big deal. You can just do it with a scissor. I'm just making sure that tape is in there good, and it looks like it's in there good. The next thing to do is, well, trim that off. And then we slide in the stainless cover and seal that in. Then here is just the stainless cover that goes in there. And we just stick that in the end in the grooves and slide her all the way in. And the last piece of this puzzle is this little rubber cord. It's just like an O-ring, comes in a long coil, and I always find it best to stretch it out and double it up and then cut it in half. And then we just start working it into the grooves here, top and bottom on the rail. So now that we got the linear scale on the table done, I want to mount the readout head. This will give, I got to just figure out where this is going. I'm not even sure, but I got to put it somewhere that's going to be out of the way, and I kind of have an idea. I'm going to play with it, and we'll get that mounted up and get the head mounted, and then we can start setting up that reader scale to go, the reader head to go on the scale that we put on the table. Well, as you can see, it's almost impossible to find a really good spot on this machine to mount this, but I think this will work. I can swing it out of the way for the crank here to raise and lower, but it's still high enough where it's visible, even if the head's all the way up. It'll work out here, and if it don't, eventually I can move it. I may build a bracket off the back of my pendant control here to mount it here eventually, but for now, to get it up and running, this is perfect. So now I'll run the cable for the encoder, for the reader head, and then we can start making, or putting in the brackets for this thing. So the Machine DRO readouts come with a whole assortment of bracketing, all kinds of little brackets and stuff to support it. So I'm going to go ahead and figure out what's going to work best for this project, and go ahead and get it put together. We'll get that mounted, and then we should be good to go. Well, here's the bracketing all set up. I'm going to say this one thing, and it's the only negative I have to say about the Machine DROs, is their bracketing really leaves a lot to be desired. And actually, this is the first time I've ever used their bracketing. I always build my own, so you know, it worked okay, but I definitely am not overly impressed with their brackets, so I'll just say that. But otherwise, absolutely love the readouts. Now we're set up properly, we can give it a test. So I got it on the x-axis, zero it. Let's just see how she does on the full length of it. Make sure I don't have any dead spots anywhere. Make sure I didn't screw something up. Well, I'd say that's pretty good. 100 inches of travel on a mill. Pretty cool. So one thing I didn't show was the install of the scale cover here, and it's quite simple, really. You take the cover and you put it upside down, and if you can see here, there's a groove, and you just drill a couple of 3.5 millimeter holes. I think it's 3.3 that I'm running, and then put the screws through, put the nuts on, and then you slide it in from the end and tighten them down. Pretty simple. Okay, so the next thing I need to do is make a mounting bar, because there's no good surfaces on this machine, to mount my scales to, and I need to measure out my hole spacing so that I get that, get them just right. I'm going to drill them on the planer, actually. So we're going to use the digital readout to space our holes. So what you do to get that distance is measure the distance between your holes. And we have 94 millimeter, and then you measure the hole diameter and add them together. 6 millimeter. So that's 100 millimeter spacing, and I already did check it all out to make sure they're all right. So we'll go ahead and set the bar up and then drill all the holes to be tapped for the mounting bars. So my initial thought here was to clamp it right over the T-slot and drill it completely, but instead I'm going to wind up having to clamp it and center drill it, and then I'll take it over to the AV drill and drill them. But this will get me my position, so I've got it roughly where I want it as far as setting the bar on there, the scale on there. I'm going to take an caliper and measure from the edge of the table to the part in a couple spots, get it close, and then indicate it in, and away we'll go. So as you can see, setup has always been very tedious on this machine, and getting this readout on here is going to simplify and speed this up significantly. So now we're just going to put a center drill in, and we're going to spot our first location and then move it down 100 thou at a time, or 100 millimeter at a time. Now, I don't need it absolutely perfect on this one, so I'm just going to eyeball it and get it to where it'll work for me for a starting point. I'd say that looks pretty decent. All right, so where I want to be, I'm going to go ahead and zero my readout, and I'm actually going to switch it to millimeter to make it easier on me. So now I can start drilling my holes and just move it 100 mil at a time. Well, I don't know if you can see it, but those holes, those center drill marks line up absolutely perfectly. So we'll go ahead and take it over to the AV and drill them. Alright, so I got my mounting bar made and laid up here, and I quickly did the other one for the vertical scale. But now I got to figure out how I'm going to mount this thing, because this is about the only good spot there is to mount this scale, and set the bracket up off here. So I got to figure out a bracketing to come off of here. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that, because this is going to take me some time and some playing around to get it just right. And when we come back, I'll have that all ready to go, and we'll mount it up and show you how it works. Ha! Finally got it! I think we're good now. All right, well, we're back. The install is finished. I didn't show the footage of making the brackets for these because that was quite drawn out, and actually I had to do it over a couple of days because I had so many other jobs coming in. But let me grab the camera and show you all the bracketing and how it came out. So for the y-axis, I did this kind of bracket, just screws to the back side of the way, a couple of cap screws, and then cap screw to my bar that supports the scale. And it fits in there just beautifully. Absolutely about the best fit you could possibly ask for. And I can still get the Allen wrench in here to tighten this screw. This is the head clock. Everything fits nicely except for that's a little tight. Gonna be a problem. So I'll have to make an extension for this to get it out a little further so I can crank it. We got our cables all hooked up and strung out, tied up nicely so they're out of the way. Let me get back here to the other one. So again, another mate to that same bracket. And then this is the other bracket for the vertical scale. And this one took a little doing to figure out, but glad this one came out nice. And then the other bar that I machined for the scale to mount to, as you can see, has 4 points that it's bolted to the frame of the machine, and then with spacers and shims, and I had to shim and measure until I got it all just right. So I think we got her. Now, the moment of truth, let's fire this thing up and see what we got. All right, switches on the back. All zeros, that's a good sign. So I'm going to run the y-axis right now. Beautiful, beautiful, works. I don't know if we need to run it the full length, but you get the picture. And now the Z. Very nice. I think this is going to work. And then our X-axis is all on the pendant control here. Perfect. So I think all in all, I'm going to be pretty happy with this. Another thing that I want to bring up here, which is nice about a digital readout, is they calculate out bolt circles, so you don't need a rotary table, which a lot of you probably do. And here in the instruction manual, which is a very good manual, actually, I'm very pleased with this manual compared to the last ones. This one's a little better detailed, but they call it a, what is it, a pitched circle diameter, not a bolt circle. And so you push this button, we have our starting radius of 1 inch, starting angle at 0, ending angle 270 degrees, 4 holes, direction, you can go clockwise or counterclockwise, and then start. So there's your first hole position, move over to 1 inch. Second hole, move down 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch. There's your 4 holes in a bolt circle. And you can change the program very easily. Just go back in, radius, starting angle. You can end wherever you want. I think I hit it twice. Number of holes. Let's go 7, just because. And there is our bolt pattern. So you can do a lot of neat things with this. This will make it easier for setup on a lot of different projects, doing keyways, things like that I do on this machine. It's going to make life so much better. Again, just absolutely love their products. M-DRO, Machine DRO in the UK. Well, I hope you enjoyed the video of the install as much as I could show of it. Like I said, things got hectic and a lot of different jobs came in and I had to back and forth to it and it was just hard to shoot everything. But it's all done, it's installed, it's going to work good. I will do some calibrating, make sure everything is good to go. Just set up some blocks and measure blocks and do different things to double check all the readings. But it went together smoothly, considering. This was probably the most difficult install I've ever done on a digital readout, just because of having to build so many different brackets to mount the scales on. So many different places to mount it in different ways. This is a very difficult build. So glad it's done. It's a great addition to the shop here. But we have one more thing I'm going to do with the machine, is put my decal on it. And this looks like about the best spot is right here on this electrical box. I'm just going to put it right there. So again, check out Machine DRO if you're in the market for a digital readout. I did not get a sponsorship for this. I paid for this digital readout. I'm very happy with their products though, very, very much so. And they will custom build a plan for you for what your needs are. So you give them measurements of their machines and they'll set you up with what you need. Shipping was not terrible from the UK to the US. All in all, total, this digital readout was about, I think it was like right around $1,000 US. So not terrible for all the magnetic scales, the cables, everything. Not a bad deal. I set up a 3-axis on my Cincinnati horizontal last year, and I think that one was about $500 or $600. So very, very reasonably priced compared to a lot of them out there. The customer service is just incredible. So check them out. And with that, until next time, get out in your shop and get it done right the first time.